Well, hello and welcome. In today's action-packed episode, we're going to be talking about Stephen Miller and his Palantir holdings, conflicts of interest in the executive branch. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Who wouldn't want to watch that? Yes, I know it sounds dry. It is actually really interesting. And if you bear with me, trust me, I will pull a rabbit out of my hat for you. So what we're talking about is Stephen Miller, the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Trump administration, who also works as a special advisor to Homeland Security and is known to be spearheading the development of the Department of Homeland Security's immigration and security policy. So it's well known that Palantir Software was awarded a non-competitive contract worth an estimated $30 million to develop the Immigration OS software. This software is designed to track undocumented immigrants through aggregating key information out of, we believe, the Department of Social Security, the IRS, and other such departments. The idea is that it's supposed to be able to collate dossiers on individuals. So anybody that has an electronic footprint in the United States. So if you have Social Security, if you have IRS, if you have a footprint in Social Security, if you have a footprint in the IRS, all this information from all the different departments can be centralized to create a kind of master database so that every single person that is in the system can have a dossier built to make it easier for them to track individuals. And while Stephen Miller seems to have a broad coverage of most of the portfolios and often talks directly with the President, Donald Trump, he's also synonymous with the ICE raids that have been going on, where immigrants are being detained all over the United States. And in particular, the focus has currently been on Los Angeles, which, ironically, I'm based in. It's also about the expansion of the holding facilities and detention centers for ICE, which are being dramatically upscaled. So things like Alligator Alcatraz and other such facilities that are aiming to increase the amount of people that can be processed and held by ICE. Now, what this is about is that federal ethics laws are designed to prevent potential conflicts of interest, preferably before they come into the public's view, aiming to avoid damaging the public trust. The so-called bedrock principle is that public service is a public trust fundamentally. This principle underpins the entire framework of government ethics. Now, in the case of Stephen Miller and Palantir, the financial holdings for Stephen Miller are estimated to be around about $100,000 to $250,000. Even though this is under the name of one of his children, it is part of the rules that family members are still counted towards a conflict of interest situation. There is a concept called de minimis. I know it sounds like something else, but what it really means is that there is a maximum dollar value of holdings you're allowed to have when it comes to a stock that you might have influence over in your position. So Stephen Miller's holdings through his child is not supposed to exceed $15,000. So Stephen Miller's holders significantly outstrip that limitation. So on this slide, we have a web of influence. And as you can read here, it says an analysis of the systemic financial conflicts of interest between senior administration officials and data surveillance contractor Palantir Technologies. Stephen Miller holds a key position in the Trump cabinet. And one of Stephen Miller's key roles is a senior advisor to Homeland Security. So as you can see in this chart, the blue portion is the maximum you're supposed to be allowed. So if you look carefully at this diagram, Stephen Miller's stake is somewhere in the vicinity of $250,000. The de minimis requirement, which is basically such a threshold for an interest that you might hold in something that you're involved in. In this case, Palantir Software is actually contracting to key areas that Stephen Miller has significant influence over. The maximum allowed is $15,000. And as you can see, if Stephen Miller's holdings, even though they're in his child's name, it's still considered to be a conflict of interest. So he's way over the line at $250,000 as opposed to $15,000. I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know how much clearer it can get than this. For those that don't understand what a conflict of interest is, if you're in a government position, even if it's elected, even if it's bureaucratic, you're not supposed to be able to profit from being in a government position. I mean, it's not just that it's immoral or that the optics are bad, which, depending on how you look at life, they are. But it's also illegal. And let's face it, if under the Biden administration or the Obama administration or under the Clinton administration, or for that matter, if H.W. Bush or George W. Bush, Reagan, even back to Eisenhower or JFK, can you imagine the outcries that people would have made if somebody had this much of a glaring conflict of interest? Because Stephen Miller has a direct influence over which software is chosen, and he has significant holdings in Palantir. This is a textbook conflict of interest. Now, we've got to be careful here. We've got to be fair about how we look at this, because Stephen Miller acquired the Palantir shares, we believe, in 2021. So this was when he wasn't in a key position. This is holdings that he came into the position with. So to be fair and just and reasonable on this, you can't say, unless he's materially made changes to the portfolio, it's a bit of a stretch to say that this was insider trading. So we have to be very careful here. This is more about a conflict of interest that exists, and usually the way you deal with that is that the person then divests their interest in whatever the conflict is. That's the way it's usually carried out. You do have an obligation to declare conflicts of interest, and you do have a requirement to not only declare it, but also you need to manage it. In this case, we're talking about either ceasing to be involved in the position, if that's even possible, which means he would have to really stand down from his activities with ICE, with the Department of Homeland Security and things like that. He would have to totally, like a Chinese wall, hermetically seal himself off from it. Now, I don't even know that that's possible. Or he has to divest. But do people not see just, this is not just a little bit over the line. This is not just a little tiny indiscretion that's, you could think, well, is it that big a deal? This is a huge deal. This is a huge deal when it comes to conflict of interest. It's glaring. It's like a bomb's gone off. It's like staring into the sun. This is as textbook as it gets of a conflict of interest. If MAGA tries to spin this and pretends that this is not a conflict of interest, well, that doesn't surprise me. For them, night is day, day is night. Anything could happen. You name any fact in the universe, 2 + 2 = 4. If it's not in their interest, they'll say it equals whatever number they want to make it up. It's to be expected. And it's not to be accepted, though. We have to hold MAGA accountable. So let's look at the anatomy of a conflict of interest. So what this is based on is Federal Law 18 U.S.C. 208. and this forbids officials from participating in matters affecting their financial interest. It doesn't get much clearer than that. The path to potential criminal conflict is direct and clear. The financial interest level that is acceptable is up to $15,000 US. We're talking an estimated 250,000. This is simple math. Conflict of interest is clearly defined. Anything over $15,000 is a conflict. $250,000, it's more than 10 times. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than this. So then the next part of the standard is, how involved is Stephen Miller in the decision-making processes that would affect any contracts that Palantir would be involved in? It's pretty simple. So the official participation, well, if Stephen Miller isn't the main architect of what's going on with ICE and is not one of the fundamental, if not the major driver of all the initiatives of ICE right now in terms of the immigration push, sending in masked men with automatic weapons, terrorizing thousands of people and ripping families apart, destroying businesses and damaging key economies, particularly where I am, in Los Angeles, where we see total disruption, killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. So the official participation, does Stephen Miller have direct influence over the contracts that are awarded to Palantir through ICE or DHS? There's a clear answer, which is yes. He's deeply, heavily involved. He's integral to it. He is intimately involved in this. Can people not see that if you're going to profit by awarding a contract to a company which benefits you, which enriches you, that's a conflict of interest? This is as clear-cut and this is as textbook as it gets. Insider trading? No. He'd already purchased this before he assumed the role and before Trump had been elected and before the Trump administration was formed. So no, holding Palantir shares is a problem, but you can't say it was insider trading when he first got it. But anything he does from now on could be viewed as insider trading, unless he's being forced through the rules to divest his interest, which is in his child's name, but it still counts. So direct effect on stock. Does Stephen Miller have a direct influence on the stock? Clear answer is yes. Does he have influence on the policies that affect the fortunes of Palantir, particularly with any kind of surveillance software that ICE is looking at purchasing or expanding on? Oh, yeah. He has a direct influence on it. This is what a conflict of interest looks like. And so, in this diagram, it shows, it says there's a potential for conflict of interest. I don't know. I think this graphic, we could have actually changed that to like a big sun going, yes, there is clearly a conflict of interest. So it's not just Stephen Miller that's involved, although he is very much front and center in this, of course, because of his position, but also because of the size of his stake, $250,000 that we know of, worth of Palantir stock. And as you can see on this chart, it's sitting around the $250,000 mark at the top of this chart. I mean, there was 11 people that were shown to have some interest in Palantir, but there were different levels of stakes. And really what we're going to do here, though, is, to be fair and just, is to look at the ones that clearly abrogate the $15,000 ceiling in terms of the Palantir stock that you can own. So Kara Frederick, who is a White House policy advisor, we think holds around the vicinity of about $100,000 worth of Palantir stock. That's, again, way over the $15,000 threshold. They've just got to divest. But the worrying thing is that they're having to be forced to divest in this. We're having to call them out. This is my whole argument about why the Trump administration is the most corrupt administration in the United States history. It's staggering. It's like every single angle that's possible if there's a conflict of interest or a way of enriching themselves, they are in it up to the hilt. This is the most corrupt cabinet, the most corrupt administration we've ever seen, the most corrupt president, bar none. I mean, you go back to any era. If Nixon had done this, people would have been staggered. And Nixon was known to be a criminal president and was forced to resign because he was going to be impeached, because in those days, the senators and the members of the House of Representatives would not broker any kind of conflict of interest, and certainly not a glaring one like this. How times have changed. Here, $250,000 worth of Palantir stock. I mean, MAGA thinks it's okay. But I ask you, if there was somebody in the Biden cabinet that did this, that was profiting with such a clear, like the sun, glaringly obvious conflict of interest, would there not have been screams? And, I don't care about the two different parties and whatever. It's just we need a universal standard. We have a standard that's well established, crystal clear in the understanding, and laid out so there is no doubt. There is no room for ambiguity here, not even close. This is as clear-cut as it gets. It's like the sun is in the sky and we're pointing to it, looking at it. And what? MAGA's going to tell us, oh, it's nighttime, that's the moon. I mean, are you people insane? I mean, honestly, I call the classic BS on this. I mean, it's like, these guys, it's not just a little bit and at the edges. It's right in your face, out in the open. I mean, they don't even disguise it or hide it. There's no apologies or anything. In any other era, if anybody was found to be doing anything like this, there would have been outrage. MAGA? Oh, so this is okay? So if we ever change government and anybody else gets in, say a Democrat gets in, then it's going to be all right if they do this? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Because in my position, I don't care. If a Democrat did this, they should be thrown out. Anyway, Palantir's windfall. As its technology becomes central to the administration's immigration agenda, Palantir's fortunes soar. So we're seeing estimated 80% increase. Stock price surges in 2025 have moved somewhere in the vicinity, plus minus, depending on when you look at it, but around about 80% up. I mean, that for a stock is phenomenal. I mean, that's a huge rise in a share price. Do people not see this? This is not normal. Some stocks, they're lucky if they move 10, 15, 20%. We're talking 80% surge in the price. Yes, do some stocks move at higher levels than that at certain times? Yes. But when you're talking about well-established stocks that are in more the mainstream, not penny stocks and things like that, which are highly speculative, we're talking about a well-established company trading in the stock market, moving within this year in the vicinity of about 80% increase in its share price value. Next slide for you. The network of influence. The connections go beyond stock holdings, weaving a web of political, personal, and corporate ties that align government action with Palantir's business interests. Let me say that again. The connections go beyond stock holdings, weaving a web of political, personal, and corporate ties that align government action with Palantir's business interests. Do I need to spell this out? So Stephen Miller and anybody else and corporate ties, so relationships with the Palantir people, some of which have moved back and forth. I mean, it's like a revolving door of personnel. And then you're talking about the government policy. Can you see? There's no objectivity here. The whole idea of government contracts is that you're supposed to try and get what is in the best interests of the public at the best possible price in a competitive bid for whatever you're looking at. And the government's action here is complicit with working with a corporation where everybody's making money out of this. Now, is Palantir a bad company? No, I'm not saying that. Well, it depends. Well, maybe morally, some people might make the argument that it is. But is it an incompetent company, or is it, not capable of delivering what it's contracting to do? Clearly, with the kill chain systems for the Department of Defense and things like that, and a lot of its technology, yeah, it's robust, and it's certainly delivered on its contractual terms that I know of. So that wouldn't be an issue. So it's not like we're getting a corrupt, useless pack of idiots delivering garbage and getting paid for it. No, the scary thing is that they are actually really delivering, and what it can do, that's the scary part. So, but on that basis, when you're talking about a conflict of interest and things like that, it's more about the relationships. It's not only the optics of it, which are terrible. I mean, the optics, if anybody tells me these are good optics, are you kidding me? These optics are terrible. But there is actually material issues. Anyway, so the points on this slide: high level of patronage. Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel is a major political and financial backer of the administration, ensuring top-level access. If people don't know, Peter Thiel is actually had worked with Elon Musk, founding certain organizations and things like that. He is one of the founders of Palantir, and he is the person that backed J.D. Vance when he became a senator. He bankrolled him and helped him significantly. And there's definitely a strong relationship between them. And he also was very much involved in supporting J.D. Vance to become the vice president. So this term, the revolving door. I love that term because it really does give you an idea that some people are moving between the institutions and the corporations and things like that, and that there's quid pro quos going on and buddy systems and things like that. So it says the revolving door. Former 10-year Palantir employee Gregory Babachia? I hope I'm saying that right. Gregory Babachia, sorry if I get that wrong, is now the federal CIO, Chief Information Officer. Are people getting this? So the government-based computer systems, etc. Gregory Babachia, I think that's the way you say it, isn't it? Is now the federal CIO, the Chief Information Officer. So he has key influence of government IT contracts, wide IT standards and things like that. That's a significant influence, don't you think? Okay, he's no longer working for Palantir, but do you see the connection? Let me get a drink. Former 10-year Palantir employee Gregory Babachia is now the federal CIO, influencing government-wide IT standards. So the Chief Information Officer for the federal government is an ex-Palantir guy, And if you don't think there's a connection, bully for you, but I mean, can people not? I mean, okay, there's optics and whatever. Has the guy totally disconnected? He might have. He might not have. We don't know. But the point is, though, that there are relationships like this going on where people are moving in between the government and the corporations. This is what's called a revolving door. It's problematic. So familial and departmental ties. Stephen Miller's wife works at the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which pushes for data unification projects that benefit Palantir and employs 3 other former Palantir staffers. So Musk's Doge team, although he's withdrawn from that now, but can you see the connections? Musk and Peter Thiel, there's a connection there, and all the people around them. And then Stephen Miller's wife is working with was working with Elon Musk. I don't quite know what's happening with Elon Musk. In practical terms, seemingly withdrawn from Doge. But again, do people not see the optics of this are terrible? Anyway, next slide. So this slide is titled An Inadequate Defense. The White House claims officials will recuse themselves from matters affecting their stock. For a Homeland Security advisor, those whose entire portfolio drives Palantir's business, ethics experts argue this is an unworkable and hollow defense. So let me read that again. The White House claims officials will recuse themselves from matters affecting their stock. That means if you're holding stock that you have an direct influence over, or even an indirect influence, but one that's palpable, one that's optically visible. The standard way of dealing with this, the norms in the past, was that you would either divest or remove yourself totally, one or the other, or both. So for a Homeland Security advisor, Stephen Miller, whose entire portfolio drives Palantir's business because he makes decisions that affect the contracts that Palantir are being given, that are being awarded, because he makes money if Palantir makes money. Do people not see that? It's a conflict of interest. Ethics experts argue this is an unworkable and hollow defense. You can't justify this. So recusal. What usually happens in these cases where there is a conflict of interest is to recuse yourself. It's kind of like a judge or a lawyer or something like that, where you've got some kind of connection, whether it's through a family tie or friendship. So you recuse yourself. You say, okay, I'm not going to be involved in whatever that process is, and actually demonstrably do so. So it says here, a pledge to avoid participating in specific matters that would create a conflict. That's one remedy. The other one is divestiture. That basically means selling off your interest. So you don't have it anymore. $15,000 worth, okay. Anything over, not okay. So divestiture. The required ethical remedy. Selling the asset entirely is the only viable solution when the conflict is central to an official's job. So I'll say that again. Selling the asset entirely is the only viable solution when the conflict is central to an official's job. I don't know how it can be any clearer than that. I hope that's been helpful. Please like and subscribe, and please comment. I would like to know what people think about this. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.